and welcome to the Living Plate Teaching Kitchen, where we're changing the conversation around food and nutrition so you can meet your health goals with less stress in the kitchen. I'm Jeannie Petrucci, registered dietitian nutritionist, and today I am so excited to be joined by my colleague Sharon Palmer. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, how are you?
Great to be here. We are so excited to have you here in our kitchen today. Sharon is a nationally recognized, award-winning registered dietitian who focuses on plant-powered diets and food system sustainability. I am not going to do your bio justice, so I'm actually going to turn it over to you, Sharon. If you could please share with our dinner guests a little bit of your background.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here. I'm live in my kitchen in Los Angeles, California. And I'm a registered dietitian. I'm very passionate about plant-based nutrition and sustainability. So I have my master's in sustainable food systems. I'm a writer, author of the Plant-Powered book series, an editor for Today's Dietitian, and a blogger at the Plant-Powered Dietitian.
Terrific. And we're going to, at the end, we're going to do a resource roundup, and we're going to drop in links for everybody so they can find out where to find you and where to purchase your books and read your blogs and all of that. Sound good?
Great.
Good. So these are the two books. I actually just held them up. I'm going to put them aside now, but I wanted people to see that we actually have these in our library at Living Plate for patients to take out. It's actually a circulating library. So we're going to put those back in our library. And we're going to start today, Sharon, by revealing the menu to our guests. Is that all right with you to get started?
Perfect.
Okay, good. So our beverage today, so whenever I have a dinner party, I always love to have like a signature cocktail. Well, today it's a mocktail, right? We're going to be having a lavender lemon tea. I was so glad that, and all of these recipes, by the way, are Sharon's. So I actually never tried lavender tea before today. So I was really excited that we selected this recipe. So it's a lemon lavender cooler. And here you can see we put it in a mason jar. It is super hot and super steamy. Oh, it's dripping here in New Jersey today. So it's a perfect day to have this beverage. It is a lavender chamomile tea that we've steeped, and we've added some mint and lemon. So super refreshing. The recipe, there's a link to get the recipes in the timeline. So if you're interested in all of these recipes, go ahead and fill that out, and we'll get them to you within a couple of days. So we are also going to be making Thai lettuce wraps. The base for that is going to be tempeh. We're going to be doing a lentil cherry tomato salad, and we're going to have dessert. Of course, every dinner party needs one. Pecan cherry bars. How does that sound, Sharon?
Good. I love it.
All right. So we are going to get started with the recipes. I'm actually going to begin with the pecan cherry bars because they do need to sit in the freezer for a little bit. So while I pull that recipe out, we're going to start talking about your overall principles of plant-based nutrition.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, well, I'm really interested in this concept that everybody can eat a more whole foods plant-based diet. No matter what your diet, no matter what your lifestyle is, you can eat more whole plant foods and gain health benefits as well as environmental benefits. So even if you're an omnivore or a flexitarian, a pescatarian, even a vegetarian or vegan, you can really gain benefits by eating more whole plant foods. And what I'm talking about there are things like whole grains, lots of pulses, beans, lentils, dried peas, soy foods like the tempeh we're sharing today, or tofu, lots of fruits and vegetables, healthy plant fats like avocados and nuts and seeds, and also herbs and spices. So this is really what takes up this beautiful whole foods plant-based diet.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your principles. I am going to, again, start with dessert, which is always a fun place to start. And these are the pecan cherry bars. We're going to begin by softening up the nut butter, and it's actually quote unquote nut butter because this is actually seed butter. I think your recipe does call for sunflower seed butter.
That's right.
Why did you choose to do that versus like a peanut butter, for example?
Well, this recipe is really an easy one to alter according to your own preferences, but I really like the idea of introducing people to some new things they might not have tried. And you can make a butter, just like peanut butter, out of many seeds, such as pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds. Even tahini is a paste made out of sesame seeds.
Yeah.
So it just showcases that you could use different types of seed butters, and it also maybe is a more allergen-friendly nut butter for some people who may be sensitive to other types of tree nuts or peanuts. The sunflower seed butter might be an alternative.
Great. So so we could actually make this completely allergen-friendly.
Exactly.
I think everything. So this is a gluten-free kitchen because I have celiac disease. So everything is already gluten-free. So we have gluten-free oats. The chocolate chips that we're using are from Enjoy Life, so they are also allergen-friendly. So the pecans. What is a different seed that perhaps you could use in place of the pecans? What would be your choice?
So you could use any kind of a nut or seed to replace the pecans. If you were sensitive to tree nuts, you could use something like pumpkin seeds, for example. So that would be a nice alternative. But really, you could use any other nut that you preferred. I kind of like the idea of showcasing pecans here because a lot of times that's one of the tree nuts we don't use as often in the kitchen. And it has a really nice color in this recipe, too.
You are so right. It has a little bit of a redness to it, correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I've softened up to some butter, which really didn't take much time. And actually, again, it's so hot in New Jersey today, probably didn't even need to do this. It kind of poured. I'm looking at Max because I'm like, do we need to melt this? We weren't really sure. It's so hot, it just kind of poured into the pan. So, but it's nice and warm now. We added the honey. The honey is the sweetener, but we could use another sweetener if we didn't want to use honey, correct?
Exactly. I like to give people the option. You could use agave nectar. I like to use maple syrup. Those are some of the sweeteners that would be really nice. So you could use what you prefer.
Terrific. Yes, I love maple syrup. We use it a lot in our kitchen. Mm-hmm. So I've added the dry ingredients. We use the oats, the pecans, the chocolate chips. I added the cinnamon, which I can smell. It's really nice. Also the chia seeds. Do you want to talk a little bit about the properties of chia seeds in this recipe? Because I'm sure that you thought about that when you developed this recipe.
Yes, the chia seeds are getting more popular and they're really nutrient rich. They're packed with omega-3 fatty acids, which I like, important part of a plant-based diet. But they also have a property of this gel-like property that they will help. So if you're trying to eat more plant-based, reducing your intake of eggs, they could really take the place of eggs in a lot of your cooking. So I kind of,
if I was going to use chia. If I was going to use chia seeds as an egg replacer, what would that look like?
Yeah, I usually use a tablespoon of chia seeds with a few tablespoons of a liquid in a recipe to replace an egg. So, and if you let it, the liquid combine with the chia and let it create kind of a gel-like texture, it can really help you in your, like a cookie recipe or a bar, a bread, those types of things. I use that quite a bit in a lot of my recipes.
As a binder. Yeah.
Exactly.
So this is, I've mixed it in. It's actually quite crumbly right now. So you might be saying, well, how is that ever going to be formed into a bar? You're going to use your hands. And one of my strategies when I'm making bars like this, because I make them all the time, is to put coconut oil on my fingertips, and it prevents, because if I put my hands in here right now, I'm just going to come up with all of the goodness, right? And I really want it to stay in the bowl. So I just dip my fingers into the coconut oil and I compress it and mix it. I'm actually going to hand this over to Max, who is going to press this into a pan press, and we'll have it come back when it's done. But it was as simple as that. Again, if your nut butter, I love that you brought up tahini, Sharon, because I think that could be super interesting in a recipe like this. If you have a seed or nut butter that's a little bit more runny, you probably can skip the heating step. Would you agree?
Oh, yes. That's just to soften it and make it more liquid that it'll go into that.
Terrific. Yeah. And then here's the pan. We just lined a pan with some plastic wrap. Oh, Max, I forgot the chocolate chips. No, that's a crime without those. Okay.
Don't want to forget those.
That's okay. We're not missing those. So that's it for the pecan cherry bars. And they're going to go into the freezer. They really don't take long to firm up at all, maybe 30 minutes. But you can just store them in the freezer after they're cut and then take them out and put them in the fridge as you want to consume them.
Exactly.
Okay,
and I really like that recipe as like a homemade nutrition bar, because you're just creating your own nutrition bars, really. So It's
Exactly.
great for school lunches or for, snacks during the day.
Great. Yes, and also cost effective, correct?
Exactly.
Right. Not
And
as
you can tailor it to your own preferences or sensitivities too.
Yeah, perfect. So let's move on to our first principle. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that while I bring out our next recipe. And this next recipe is perfect for the concept of Meatless Mondays.
Right. Yeah. So one of my favorite tips for helping you to kind of live more of a plant-based lifestyle is to try Meatless Monday. So Meatless Monday is this great concept that really provides people the incentive to go meat-free one day a week, and why not Monday? Because research shows that people start their week, their best behaviors on Monday. So if you're going to start something, do it on Monday. And the other reason I like the Meatless Monday idea is because a lot of us do our shopping over the weekend. So you can start your healthy eating behaviors with a packed refrigerator and pantry.
Yes.
And one day a week, go meat-free. And for example, you're creating this beautiful menu that could be a meat-free menu for your Meatless Monday. So, and if you like Meatless Monday, then, and you see how fun and delicious it is, you could do a Meatless Wednesday, or you could add more meals during the week that are meatless. And the website, Meatless Monday website, has a lot of great resources, tips, recipes, great information.
Yeah, terrific. So I when I first read that research, and when you said it now, I giggled because it is so true, right? Where he's like, okay, the weekend is behind me. I'm going to start on Monday. And, people think a lot about it on Mondays and very often take action like by Monday, Tuesday. So, front loading your week with plants is always a great idea. And then you'll be so energized and motivated to kind of continue that through the rest of your week.
Exactly.
Yeah. So our next recipe is, and I cannot wait to have this for lunch. So we scheduled the digital dinner parties at 1:00 very selfishly because now I get to eat lunch. Every other Thursday I get to eat what we're making. So it's super fun. So the Thai lettuce wraps, I am going to read through the list of ingredients. We have some peanut oil that we put in the pan. We're using a Le Creuset pan. Thank you, Le Creuset, for providing us with such wonderful equipment for our digital dinner parties. We are sauteing the onion in some peanut oil. And as that gets soft, we are then going to add the garlic and the ginger. Can you just share with us why you don't add the garlic, the ginger, and the onions all at one time, Sharon? More of a culinary question.
Yeah, I don't like the garlic and ginger to get overly cooked or overly browned. So I like to kind of stage my ingredients that way. That's my personal preference in my cooking style. I just like them to get soft with flavors and aromas. Yeah.
Yes. And, you can see how I have everything set up. I'm talking to our dinner party guests now. You can see how I have everything set up here. This is called mise en place, and it's really just taking all of my ingredients and prepping ahead of time. And when we're talking about cooking onions and garlic and ginger, this is kind of the reason why we do it, because if you put the onions and the garlic and ginger in the pan and then prep the rest of your ingredients, very often you come back to burnt garlic. And
exactly.
Sharon was alluding to the fact that if you overcook garlic, it kind of takes on a bitter taste. So get everything prepped. It just takes a few extra minutes to get all set up. And then creating the recipe really is a lot more fun too. Don't you agree, Sharon?
Yeah, I love that concept. And your kitchen stays neat and clean. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love these little mise en place containers. Most of our containers come from Crate and Barrel, but you can order them online too. So our onions are now soft. So I'm going to add our minced garlic, the ginger. Now we used a microplane. We didn't chop the ginger. We actually used a microplane for the ginger. It makes it really, really tiny and allows the flavor to infuse very, very quickly. And I love that you added some hot red pepper as well. We're going to add just a touch of that, mix that up, and we're just going to let this saute maybe for a minute while I read through the rest of the ingredients until it becomes fragrant. And it will become fragrant very quickly now that I've added the ginger and garlic. So we have the garlic, the ginger, crushed red pepper, tempeh, which I'm going to want you to talk a little bit about, some carrot, we have mushrooms, cabbage, and for the sauce, it is a combination of soy sauce, agave nectar, lime juice, delicious, scallions, and then we're going to top it with peanuts, mint, cilantro, and we're going to put it in iceberg lettuce cups. So it's just, wow, a plethora of healthful plant foods. Where do you want to start? You want to start with the tempeh? We can have a conversation.
Yes. Well, one thing I wanted to mention is that I just had an opportunity to go to Thailand, and these are really the flavors of Thailand. All the things you just talked about, and they have a beautiful plant-based diet that's part of their food tradition. And I think we can gain a lot of inspiration by looking at other food cultures, which most of them do have plant-based food traditions. So this recipe has tempeh, and tempeh is a plant protein. It's made with soy and a grain. It's a traditional food that's been around for centuries. It originates from Indonesia. And here we can see some tempeh.
We're actually going to take it out because it comes in little plastic blocks. This was twice as long. This was 8 ounces. We used 4 ounces. So I'm going to take it out of the sleeve, and here you can see it's very firm. But you can definitely see it's beans.
Right. And it's fermented, which is interesting. So it has that nice little fermented bite to it, which is also, if you're interested in including more fermented foods in your diet, tempeh is one thing you could do. And I love the fact that it's a traditional food that's been used for centuries in Asia. So you can just cube it into recipes. You can crumble it. If you have a recipe that calls for tofu, you could easily use tempeh. So I like the idea of introducing these traditional plant-powered foods into recipes like this.
Tell me about the protein aspect of tempeh.
Yes, it's very rich in protein because it has soybeans. Soybeans are very high in protein. So it's a great way to replace animal protein on your plate, a super source of protein, high quality protein. So I recommend having soy foods in your diet as part of your plant-powered diet. At least 1 or 2 servings a day is great. So there are health benefits related to those.
What are some other soy-based products that maybe we could use in here?
So you could easily put tofu instead of tempeh in this recipe. It would be very easy to swap that out. And if you wanted to try something else, I think edamame might be really nice in this recipe.
Yeah.
You might want, because it has that Asian profile. So you can buy frozen edamame in the freezer section, and you might want to mash it just a little bit to get the texture you're looking for. But you could be really creative here and even use a different kind of bean, a different type of cooked bean, like white beans might be nice in there as well.
Or aduki beans. I love aduki beans.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Right? And they're widely available. They're super colorful, which brings me to one of the other things I wanted to talk about this dish particularly. It's very, very colorful. How does that translate into health benefits?
Yes, when we have colorful dishes, that's a calling card for the phytochemicals found in those plant foods. And we know phytochemicals are these compounds found in plants that scientists believe protected the plant from their threats, their environmental threats. And we know that when we consume phytochemicals in plant foods, we gain health benefits. They're rich in anti-inflammatory properties, antioxidant properties. So having a diet packed with all of colorful plant foods is a really great health strategy. Reduce your risk of chronic diseases.
Yes. Yes, which we all want to do, of course, right? We all want to live longer. I never met anybody who didn't. So yeah, eating a very colorful plant-based and plant-focused diet can help reduce your risk. So this is super colorful, and I am going to take your advice in the recipe, which, by the way, I'm going to repeat for those of you who are watching this either live or as a recording. There is a link where you can just register for this course, and you will automatically be sent the recipes. In this recipe, you caution not to overcook this. You really want the vegetables to maintain their colors and their vibrancy.
Exactly. You don't want this to be soggy, or this should have a nice little crispness to it and a color to it. Yes.
It is looking that way. And we're going to be adding peanuts, which is going to add another layer of crispness and texture. I was having a conversation with Anna, our intern, director, and producer today, about having cilantro and mint, which we are also going to add to this dish. Why you would want to put the two of them together. And in most Thai dishes, you will see cilantro and mint together because they're both cooling herbs, correct?
That's exactly right. You will see those herbs together.
Great.
And I love the pairing of them. They really accent each other nicely. So
Yes, and we did add the hot pepper, but if you want this spicier, and almost certainly I'm going to be getting my bottle of sriracha out when I consume this for lunch. I'm going to make it spicier. But again, having the mint and the cilantro helps cool the dish significantly. So I have stopped cooking this. That has come together and we are done. I'm actually going to pass the peanuts off to Max, and he's going to plate this for us so we can take a look at it when it's done. Okay, so we can move on to our next principle, number 2, which, and I love this principle, the 75-25. I have to tell you, Sharon, I was so excited that you listed this as one of your core principles when talking to people about just incorporating more plants in their diet in general, because even before I was a registered dietitian, for 25 plus years, I'm dating myself now, I've always believed that, getting to that 75%, if you look at the Academy's My Plate, if you look at the Harvard School of Public Health, if you look at AICR.org recommendations, it shows anywhere between that 70 to 75% or 60 to 75% of your plate being plants as really the kind of the zone where you get the health benefits, correct?
Exactly. And I love that message, and I recommend that as well, especially as people are trying to make their diet more plant-based. If you can start moving in that direction. And so one of the things I like to talk about is if you're trying to eat more plant-based, you're still not 100% plant-based, of course, you can use meat as a seasoning, use your animal foods as a seasoning. And we see this in food cultures around the world, where they'll take one recipe and maybe use one chicken breast to do a whole family recipe. And they typically would not serve a big chicken breast on a plate. It's a mixed dish. And in that dish is at least 75% plants, whether it's vegetables, grains, pulses. So the meat is really more of a seasoning. And this is the strategy we can use, such as in stir fries as an example, where it's mostly plants and just a little bit. So this is a way that we can start eating more plant-based.
And you can look at it as your dish, or just kind of as your day, or even as your lifestyle. So, one of the strategies I share with patients in our practice is just look at your dish, like physically take a look at it. If you're making a pot of chili, for example, and you're looking to transition to a more plant-based diet, how much meat is in that? How much meat is in there, right? Is it mostly ground beef with some beans and some vegetables? Let's flip that around and do mostly vegetables and just a little bit of meat, and you probably won't even miss it. And then you can make the transition to using lentils, for example, which would be great in chili, or quinoa, or adding more beans, correct?
Exactly. I like that example of chili. It's something we're familiar with.
Yes.
And that you can make it 100% plant-based, or you can just start that process of reducing the animal protein and adding more beans, adding more vegetables, flavorful ingredients that are plant-based. So chili casseroles is another way you could do this. Pasta dishes is another way. This is every culture has these plant-based dishes, and when we look in Italy with the pasta dishes, they're mostly plant-based, just a small amount of animal protein, if even that. So there are a lot of ways you can use that principle in your cooking style.
So you just gave me an idea. The Thai lettuce wraps that we just did, you could totally soak some rice noodles, some rice vermicelli noodles, Thai, and toss that in there.
Ooh, that would be delicious. Love it.
That's an amazing way to take that recipe and really bulk it up too.
Exactly. That would be
the rice vermicelli noodles, you don't even have to cook, you just soak them in hot water, or you could use like a pad Thai noodle even, yes?
Exactly. I love that idea.
Oh, perfect. So now we're going to move on to the 75-25. Look at it as your plate or as your day. You could even do it by meals. So, my breakfast and my lunch are going to be 100% plant-based, and then I'm going to have a small serving of animal protein for dinner with the rest of my vegetables. Really just kind of keeping that 75-25 proportion in your mind is a wonderful guide.
I love it.
So our next principle is?
So the next principle is talking about making the plants the star of your plate. So, a lot of times when we are thinking about what we're going to cook for dinner, it's the end of the day, we're on our way home, fighting traffic, and you're thinking, oh, what am I going to make for dinner? A lot of the times, people immediately go to the animal proteins. Okay, is it going to be chicken, fish, beef? But what if
it's that phone call, right? The phone call you get from your partner. Oh, honey, what's for dinner? Salmon, chicken, beef, pork.
Yeah.
It's so funny. That's funny.
Animal protein.
Yeah.
But what if we actually went to the plant in our thinking process? So when you come home and you're thinking about that dinner, think about what's in your pantry, what's in your refrigerator. For example, you might have a beautiful head of kale. Think about, what can I do with that kale? In the fall, you might have a gorgeous butternut squash. Think about what you could do with that. I have a bag of lentils in my pantry. So really this concept of making the plants the star of the plate and focusing on what you can do with that plant food to make it exciting and interesting.
And one of the things you just mentioned, I think we need to reinforce the environment. And actually, I'm not talking about the environment outside the home. I'm talking about your environment inside the home, because a lot of what you just said depends on people having these things in their home.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So make sure that you have the shelled edamame in your freezer ready to be defrosted. Make sure you have, the tempeh the shelf life is very long for both tempeh and tofu. Just making sure you have these things in your refrigerator, freezer, and pantry. So things like canned beans and canned tomatoes and other canned vegetables in your pantry, that goes a really long way to helping you hasten the time from kind of pantry to plate.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of these foods are shelf stable. They last a long time, and they're economical too. When you look at dried beans and lentils, so keeping them on hand will ensure that you have more plant-based meals. It's hard to create a plant-based meal when you don't have some of those key ingredients on hand.
And enough of them. Do you see the size? Lentil jar. We use a lot of lentils in our cooking classes. So, so you brought up a good point about dried lentils. You also kind of hinted at sustainability. So I actually would love to have a little bit of that conversation now. But these are just for our guests. I wanted to share with them two of my favorite lentils. We have green lentils and also black lentils. They're French black lentils. And when you cook them, they have the texture of almost caviar-ish, right? The very tiny pearls. Do you love cooking with these?
Oh, I love them. They have such a beautiful color and this nice little texture. I love them.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
so
great.
If you could share with us a little bit about the food sustainability, your food system sustainability piece as far as plant-based proteins go. So things like the lentils, things like the tempeh, the edamame, all of that.
Yes. Well, research consistently shows that a plant-based diet is more sustainable. It has a lower carbon footprint and a lower environmental footprint. In fact, it has lower water use, lower land use. So a plant-based diet is really good for the environment. And a lot of people are recognizing that, and that's a main motivator for many people becoming more interested in plant-based eating. So one of the things that you just mentioned are the pulses, things like beans and lentils. These are really among the most sustainable of food groups, because not only they're a plant protein, so they can replace the animal protein on the plate, but they have this special ability, legumes have this special ability to fix nitrogen from the air and put it in the soil. So they're like a natural fertilizer. So when farmers plant pulses, beans, and lentils, they don't have to add synthetic fertilizer, which has a potential to harm the environment.
So are you talking about it being used as a cover crop, or just by nature of growing lentils, you're bringing nitrogen?
Yeah, both. That's a great point. Farmers have been using legumes as cover crops for centuries because they can enrich the soil between crop rotations, but they can also enrich the soil when you're just growing. When you're growing them as your main crop, you don't have to add the synthetic fertilizers that you would in other crops that require the nitrogen. So they're they require very little water to grow too. But if you think about, pulses are grown in environments with little water, so they're very drought resistant. So when you think about, they don't need the nitrogen, they don't need as much water. They're a very eco-friendly food group to be including. And then when you compare them with animal proteins, which have such a high environmental footprint, it's even more attractive. So that it's really no wonder that plant-based diets have a lower environmental footprint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I had no idea. I think we have a question. Actually, Sharon, if you want to go ahead and read the question, because I cannot see it from here.
Yeah, somebody is talking about cover crops. So basically, cover crops are a practice that farmers have used for many years. and they basically will put down a leguminous crop to fix nitrogen in the air and put it into the soil. So it's kind of a natural way to enrich your soil. So farmers would do this between crop rotations because, for example, corn would require nitrogen in the soil. You would need to enrich the soil between plantings. So sometimes cover crops are just there to enrich the soil, but you could actually harvest a cover crop if it were a legume that we could eat. So you can actually plant, a legume in between rotations and harvest it, and we could eat it.
I just learned something. That's amazing. So where can you grow lentils? Where are they grown? You said kind of arid. Or is it always hot? I know
when you look around the world, a lot of the times the cultures that are really eating a lot of lentils and beans are the Mediterranean, hot, sunny, dry. India, think about all the places in India. So you can see in North Africa, these cultures don't have a lot of water, lots of sun, but they're growing a lot in the United States as well. So pulses are really easy to grow in many places. They grow around the world very widely. Right. So they're a very easy crop to grow. And they're fun to grow too. I always like to say, if you're trying to teach your kids about growing food, try to grow some beans because they're fun because of the vine. Yeah. Children can see a pod formed because they can open the pod and find a bean. So it's a fun crop to grow at home too.
Terrific. I'm going to move on to our next principle. Thank you so much for sharing all that information. That's awesome. Our next principle is Planti-fy. Before you launch into that, let me just read the ingredients for our next recipe because it is going to come together very, very quickly. As you were chatting, I made the dressing in this very fancy piece of kitchen equipment. I'm sure you have cases of these as well, correct?
I use them for everything.
Yeah, mason jars, for beverages, for mixing, for overnight chia puddings. They're just amazing, and they're relatively inexpensive and sustainable because they're glass and recyclable. So I added all of our dressing ingredients here, and I just set it aside. If you ever, this is just kind of a tip that I give my clients. If you ever make a dressing that you really like, the next time you make it, just literally quadruple it or even, sixfold and keep it in your refrigerator. It's economical. And then you'll always have, a dressing on hand. And, as long as you have some of those key ingredients that Sharon had already talked about, like in your pantry and freezer, you're good to go.
Exactly. That's a great tip.
Okay. So our French lentil salad, your recipe, which our dinner guests are going to be receiving, starts with dried lentils. I love lentils because they cook quickly. I love all beans. It's just that other beans, like kidney beans and black beans, require a longer process, although the Instant Pot has kind of changed that game too, right?
Yeah.
But lentils cook super quickly. So you can either batch cook your lentils from scratch. We actually used canned lentils because they are widely available now. So just rinse them and drain them and you're good to go. But again, if you want to make them from scratch, you can. So you're going to make the lentils according to Sharon's instructions. And then we are using, and Sharon, you actually choose to cook your lentils in broth. Why do you do that?
I think it adds a nice flavor profile, especially for certain recipes. In this recipe, I liked it because it's a very simple salad and it increased the flavor in that.
Yes.
It's an optional step though.
They could use water, though. Our guests could use water. Okay, terrific. So the base of the salad is, of course, the lentils, and then we have celery, cherry tomatoes, shallots. I love that you used another allium here. Some parsley, and that's it. And then the dressing is olive oil, Dijon mustard, key ingredient here. Mustard is just so great with lentils.
It is.
I rarely eat lentil salad without some type of a mustard dressing. And we used a teaspoon of herb de Provence, which is a blend of herbs, but you could also use dried basil or oregano or a fresh herb, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. And salt and pepper to taste and 1 clove of minced garlic. So I made the dressing. So all I really have to do is, while you talk about plantifying, our fourth principle, I'm going to just assemble the salad. So let's pull up our fourth principle, and Sharon, you go ahead, chat about that.
I just wanted to mention really quickly that this recipe was inspired by a dear French friend of mine. And this is a very traditional recipe in France to make a simple lentil salad with a French vinaigrette. And then I kind of added the tomatoes because I felt that it needed a little pop of color. But this is a very traditional way that a plant-based dish would be part of whole foods. But getting to my fourth tip is to planti-fy recipes. So if you're trying to eat more of a plant-based diet, one strategy you could do is look at your favorite recipes that you're already including. What are your go-to recipes? Maybe it's a recipe your mother gave you, your grandmother gave you, and it's just, you know it by heart and you love it, the whole family loves it. Just take that recipe and try to make it plant-based. Try to swap out the ingredients, and it's something everybody is familiar with, and it can be accepted more easily. For example, lasagna is a great example. Maybe you have a favorite lasagna recipe, right?
So the lasagna recipe that's on your website, I really wanted to make today. It would have taken too long, but I am going to be making it, and I'm going to put a video and I'm going to share it, because it was a cauliflower lasagna, correct?
A cauliflower lasagna. It's very popular right now. Yeah.
Oh, it looks really delicious. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine. And that's an example of a way that you could take, if you have a classic lasagna recipe that's your family favorite, just try to take out the animal protein and put more plants in it. So if you, for example, if you have a sauce that has meat, just take the meat out and put more vegetables. Like that cauliflower lasagna is packed with cauliflower in the marinara sauce. And you can even use plant-based cheese if you want to make it 100% plant-based. I make my own cashew ricotta, for example. Very easy to make, where you soak cashews and blend them with a little seasoning.
Can you share, if it's so simple, can you share it with us now? Like, just walk us through it. How would one make a cashew cheese, please? Because I think that would be amazing on the salad.
Yes. Well, you can do different types of cashew cheeses. I have several on my blog, but basically, cashews work really well for making plant-based cheeses. If you soak them in water, just cover them in water for about an hour and they get soft. This is raw cashews. They get soft, drain off the water, blend them. You can add a little bit of something at that point. Like I like to add a little salt and pepper and a garlic, and nutritional yeast is something I like, which is it adds a nice kind of a cheesy sort of flavor. And then basically you can puree it based on your texture that you're looking for. If you're looking for more of a crumbly texture, like a ricotta, then you wouldn't want it to be too liquidy, because you can add a little liquid back to make it the texture you're looking for. Okay. If you want it more of a creamy, like a sour cream type texture, it's all about the amount of liquid you would use. So I was looking for more dry, crumbly for my ricotta. Yeah. So it's very crumbly. And then I like to add a little lemon juice or lime juice. That kind of adds a little
tang. Yeah.
Easy.
So great. I have made something similar, and I didn't even announce it to my family. Like, nobody knew the difference. They just thought that there was goat cheese in the salad. I mean, it didn't melt, but it had that. I did exactly what you did, just adding the lemon juice to give it that tang. Nutritional yeast is, we just go through tons of it in my house. Really gives plant-based products that cheesiness and gives it umami. Really great. You could add herbs too, correct? Make like an herb goat cheese.
Oh, yeah, definitely. In fact, my vegetarian lasagna that I made, it's 100% plant-based. I served it at a dinner party. I didn't even tell anybody. It was a big dinner party, and there were several lasagnas. I put mine out, didn't tell anybody that it was 100% plant-based, and mine was the first to go. Everybody loved it. And nobody even guessed that it had my cashew ricotta in it. So
amazing. I also make a meatless lasagna, and I actually did a very similar thing. So I'm Italian American, and lasagna is like a standard at Christmas time. And so I made a gluten-free vegan lasagna, and I walked in and everybody's rolling their eyes and like, that's not going to taste good. And it was the first thing to go. I added toasted fennel seed to the ricotta, and it made it taste like it had sausage in it. So
wow, I have to try that.
It was good. So we'll swap recipes. That's great. So if anybody watching, any of our dinner guests, you also have any ideas and flavors that you want to share with us, please drop us a note and let us know. So this lentil salad is done. You could see it was super, super simple, very colorful. I'm going to pass it off to Max to plate. But, another reason why I love this recipe and the reason why I selected it for today is because it's summertime and we're all busy and we all need to make things ahead of time. And we're also entertaining a lot and going to parties where you may or may, you may want to bring a dish to the party. This is not going to wilt. This is going to hold up really, really well, even after you dress it. There's nothing here, Sharon, that's going to get soggy.
Yes, this salad will last in your refrigerator, and I love to bring it to parties. It's also very satisfying. It has protein, it has fiber.
Yes.
So it's a satiating salad that really could be your entree. You could pair that with, with a bread and maybe, a light soup, and you've got a meal because it's so rich in nutrients.
How about like vegetable kebabs? Grilled vegetables on top of that? That would just be like really terrific, right?
It would be.
Oh, you know what reminds me, because I'm going to be making it this week, and you and I had talked about it a little bit, tofu.
Yes.
And, what's available on the market now, a lot of people think that if you, have that wet block of tofu, you have to press it, and then, grilling it is such a hassle. Tell us about products that are on the market now that kind of make it a lot easier to consume tofu that way.
Yes, you can buy tofus that are already extra firm and they're already pressed. So that takes that step out of, you can just open the package, cube it, and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
You can use a press. I have a tofu press that I keep on hand as well. You can even just press it yourself with something where I cover it with paper towels, put it on a plate, and put something heavy on top, and basically you want all the liquids to come out so that your tofu can absorb the flavors of your dish.
And can you pre-marinate it then? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Okay. So when you're pressing out the liquids from the tofu, or you're buying the extra firm tofu that's already been pressed, then you can marinate it in your flavorful marinade or sauce and let it really grab onto those flavors. And feature in whatever you're doing, whether you're doing grilled tofu or whether you're making a stir fry and you want all the flavors from your stir fry to get in there. I have recipes for curry dishes where the curry flavors get into the tofu. So you really want to get that in there.
It's a great point, because the tofu really doesn't taste like much, right? It's going to take on whatever you cook it with. So make sure you have a really tasty sauce like the one we used for the Thai lettuce wrap. So, repurpose this sauce for different applications. And I think, stir frying with some tofu could be an excellent option. And then tofu cutlets too. The tofu cutlets that you see in the store are pressed to the point where they really have a meaty texture. So they're not soft at all. You could cube them. You could make salads out of them. You could just take them out of the package and put some barbecue sauce and throw them on the grill. There's really very, very little for you to do. So keep your eyes open for that, as well as the extra firm tofu that Sharon mentioned. So here's our lunch. What do you think?
Beautiful.
Yeah. So we have our cherry bars, which are nice and firm. We cut them into nice serving sizes. We have the Thai lettuce wraps with some nice peanuts on top, and we garnish them with some additional scallions and some wedge of lime, which is always really nice. And then our French lentil salad, and of course our iced tea. So Sharon, thank you so much for joining me. We're going to do a resource roundup now so that our guests have access to all the information that you want to share with them as they transition to a more plant-based diet. So the first resource, if you could just talk about the resources that you personally offer. So SharonPalmer.com, and we're going to actually drop the links below. So again, anybody watching live or recorded version, we're going to have the links below. So Sharon, can you share with us what you do on your website?
Yes, on my website at SharonPalmer.com, you can find my books that you can get there. And I also have a lot of great recipes. I blog every single day on my blog.
What?
So I'm sharing, I know, it's crazy.
That's wow.
Quite an archive of all sorts of articles, blogs, tips, interviews, travel guides, you name it. I've got a lot of information on the plant-based lifestyle. So you can find a lot of information there. I also have cooking videos and recipes. So there's a lot of great information there, as well as social media. People can follow me on social media and Instagram and Twitter, Facebook. I have a Facebook.
I loved watching your journey through time. I'm going to Thailand in December. It will be my second time there, so it really brought me back watching you, explore Thailand through the culinary lens and the plant-based lens, but also the sustainability lens. It was really great to follow you on Instagram and see your journey. And then what other resources outside of yourself do you recommend for our dinner party guests?
So if you're looking to eat more of a plant-based diet, I definitely recommend going to Meatless Monday. Their website has such great information. If you want to start with a Meatless Monday and try it one day a week do plant-based. And I also love the Vegetarian Resource Group. They have a wonderful website. It's very fact-based. There are dietitians involved with all the information. And they have all sorts of resources about how to eat a plant-based diet, how to meet your nutrient needs, surveys, science, all of that. And another one of my favorite resources is Old Ways. They have a vegetarian and vegan diet pyramid. So it's a beautiful resource to help you see how you can plan your meals. Even if you don't want to be 100% plant-based, you can see how you plan your meals to meet your nutrient needs. They have great recipes as well. And then another resource I really love is the Vegetarian Nutrition Dietetic Practice Group. And this is a group of dietitians who are experts in plant-based nutrition. So if you're really wanting to talk to a dietitian one-on-one about how you can eat more plant-based, I recommend looking at that site, finding a dietitian in your area, as well as looking at all the resources. Again, they're science-based resources on a plant-based diet.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And if any of you watching, go to livingplate.org. There's a contact form. If you would like a personal introduction to a dietitian who can help guide you in following a more plant-powered diet, please reach out to me. We'll put you in touch. We have a national network of dietitians who are really ready to help you meet your health goals. And they provide plant-based meal plans. So tons of recipes all the time. So we have lots of resources for you. Again, Sharon, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure and an honor to have you here with us. And dinner party guests, again, link in the timeline for the recipes, and join us again next time for another digital dinner party. Thank you from the Living Plate Teaching Kitchen. Take care. Bye.